You're listening to the Nightfall podcast with Keelan, Maddie and Mike. Tonight's topic, the state of EU Halo. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first edition of the Nightfall podcast. Joined by me in this corner is Matt and Mike down below this way. So you can see there we've got the webcams on tonight. It's plenty of a discussion. We're going to be talking about the current state of European Halo. So I'll let you introduce the hosts for today. I'm Keelan. If you don't know me, I'm the guy who runs Europa Halo. Joined beside me here is in this webcam chat is Matt. So Matt, introduce yourself. Tell us something about you anyway, or your experience within the European Halo.
So I'm Matthew Mayman, also known as Great Red Shift. I've been kind of within the scene for just over 4 years now, dealing with kind of every aspect. Not playing because I'm trash, but in admin and events, dealing with previously Halo Forum, then Respawn, and then just kind of progressing from there. At the moment, kind of just dealing with this, really. So it's good to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, and also joined in the discussion tonight, one of our veteran players of the EU Halo scene. It's Mike. Mike, tell us something about yourself and all that veteran event status that you have.
So yeah, I'm Mike Craftjack. Most people know me as Manatee. I've been competing since, I started attending Halo events in 2013. I was playing in COD before that, but then jumped ship because it's COD. Horrible people. And I've been competing at every major European event since then, apart from a gap I took at the end of 2015 right up until the start of 2017.
Yeah. So, again, folks, this is the Nightfall podcast. It's our very first episode. So, taken through a little bit of an announcement. I did retweet it there about half an hour ago, maybe 20 minutes ago. But, Matt, you can let us break down for us what's been going on between us for the last few months.
So, basically the best news, really. Past few months, we've been kind of bouncing ideas of basically what next step that we need to take, especially for the sense of the non-professional scene, as it were, basically trying to pitch our ideas together and see what we come up with. What we've come up with is Nightfall. At the moment, this is just an initial podcast. It's going to kind of grow from there. Currently, we're going to be doing it kind of once a month. But also as well, we're kind of going into kind of content creation, kind of giving that kind of voice for the EU community. But also as well, more tournaments. So as probably most viewers are aware, we had Kalen with Europa Halo, and also Lou Prisma. He sadly can't attend today. He's got some internet troubles while he's moving, and Mike as well with the kind of the veteran status, as it were. And we're just going to try and see what we can grow and kind of get a flourishing community and get it kind of, hate to use the term, but back to its grassroots and kind of evolve it from there.
Yeah, exactly. So myself, I will be in the future starting to run tournaments on the back of Nightfall instead of Europa Halo now. We will be talking about later. You'll see probably on my Twitter later on about Discords and the new Twitter, which you can follow at what's the handle again?
It is GG Nightfall.
GG Nightfall. So you get
no space or anything.
Yeah, so you can follow GG Nightfall, and that will be actually probably the main account for all of us, including Europa, Halo, and Splinter tournaments. Will be moving now toward Nightfall and this grassroots movement that we're gonna try make EU Halo great again. As Matt has discussed, we are going to talk tonight about 3 different things: the past, the present, the future. We're going to break it down. We're going to take as well, you'll see that there's going to be a Q&A in the Twitch chat, so you can write whatever questions. We'll read it out. I can see there's plenty of activity in the Twitch chat at the minute. You can also tweet us out that this is actually going to happen. Also, this podcast, if you're listening to it now, it's on Twitch, but if you listen to it also, it could be on YouTube, it could be on SoundCloud. We'll have it all on our new platforms. But let's get stuck into it, guys. So we're going to start tonight, and we're going to take a look at the past.
Yeah.
So we move and we look at the past. So these guys can talk about the past. We're going to look at the likes of. We can see Tashi's in the chat. So Tashi, I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions to jump into. We're going to talk about all the Halo 5 events for the EU region and for teams that went to even international events. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about attendances at previous events. That's another thing we'll talk about tonight. And also the quality of play and the likes of community run cups and the community run scene. So first off, we'll talk about the previous events. I mean, we've had, you guys have been to some. Matty, you were admin at a few of them, a handful of them, good handful of them. Mike, you've played at plenty of them. I've watched from afar because my own financial status has meant that I couldn't afford the flight over sometimes. And plus I was busy with work and stuff and travelling. But
yeah, my financial status says I probably shouldn't have gone to most of these events, but I did anyway.
yeah. So some of the events that have happened, we've had great venues. We've had Wembley, we've had the GFIN Arena. We've seen teams move on to the likes of Denver and DreamHacks. We've seen the EU teams compete over there. World Championships. So for the past few years, what has been your highlight from an EU perspective for competing in events like that? Start with you, Matt.
It's got to be Wembley. Wembley. It's enough said, really. It was one of the most exciting events. I would definitely say. I'd say a close second would be the last HCS London event that we had. That was, especially as well with NA teams actually coming across as well. So there was quite a mix of kind of the pool of players we finally have some of the kind of the lesser known teams going against the NA. Admittedly, majority kind of got crushed, but it definitely has to be Wembley. It was just such an iconic venue. Some of the content that was created at that venue is some of the best that's been produced. For example, kind of it was like the Truth or Dares, the best friend quiz, basically Golden Boy cheating.
Shout out to Mark for that. That's it.
Yeah. From my own perspective, it was a great event. A lot of effort put into that and from behind the scenes stuff. We then moved on to the GFIN Arena, or the Gfinity Arena even. Mike, tell us your highlight. Was anything at the Gfinity Arena your highlights, or was it Wembley, or what from you?
I think it's coming back from where we were before, prior to Halo 5, because I skipped. So I wasn't around from like the launch of Halo 5 right up until Wembley, and we went from sitting in the back corner in the Insomnia events in the Rico Arena to all of a sudden it's like we're at Wembley Stadium. There's like dedicated arenas just for us now. And it was a really big. I mean, it was part of that, and part of it was the fact that I came back and I didn't know anyone.
Yeah, I mean, like
everyone had like moved on.
It's
I knew about 4 people.
Yeah, it's funny that the EU scene is quite a close knit scene in terms of the community. Like from my own experience dealing with it, there's a lot of teams that have joined off the back of a Twitter or joined off the back of a Europa Halo Cup, a Splinter Cup, a free agent list, anything at all that just guys have joined together, and the feedback from events has always been quite positive, and always like I said, that close knit community. I mean, Halo has somewhat a reputation for being a toxic community, but I mean, when you compare it to the likes of COD or any real other major esports, CS:GO, I mean, like
I think part of that is because because like European Halo is arguably the least toxic of like all the esports communities. When someone comes in and starts causing drama, it ripples everywhere because it's like such a big deal because it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my
It's
own,
such-
sorry. From my own point of view, I think it's not too bad. It has been worse in the past, and it's had its moments. It's had its up and down.
It was a lot worse when I first started.
Yeah.
There was nothing was off limits when I started. Like your family, your pets, your neighbors,
Yeah,
your
everything,
teachers.
everything.
Yeah.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah. From my own perspective, a highlight from an EU side was Denver, and the guys getting top 8 or top 6 even. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I mean, I remember I was in a nightclub in Belfast whenever I was sort of got the news that the guys had made top 6.
Huh.
It was a huge achievement, especially from European side. I mean, they didn't do. I mean, the general trend afterwards was that we sort of fell apart. I think the next one, only like one team made top 8, top 12 even. It wasn't even top 8. So that was kind of the high point for EU Halo, and it hasn't really got itself back since then. A lot of people dropped off. You know, the quality went down, and it changed quite dramatically actually. So in terms of do you think the Gfinity Arena has been a really suitable venue for European Halo? Like, I mean, it's quite. I know it's a converted cinema, but is it, is it sizable? I mean, I know there were some difficulties at the last LAN for people viewing matches and stuff in the back area, I believe. But do you still think that that's a suitable venue for, say, Halo? Even, I know it's not talking about the future yet, but do you think in terms of Halo Infinite or Halo 6, whatever you want to call it, do you think it's the sort of place that European Halo should be?
For a major, if we kind of base it kind of from kind of S tier kind of esports kind of sense, yes, I could happily go to a major Halo World Championship finals, sit at that venue and know that the quality is going to be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Even as it's just kind of it's not a criticism, it's more of a not even feedback, it's just an observation in the sense of the spectator in a more of an open environment. You're literally kind of bouncing between rooms kind of thing. You're either watching the main stage or you're trying to watch what's going on the actual open area, especially with the open area as well, because, and this is just from my experience from actually kind of dealing with the open area when I was previously with them, it's a health and safety thing. You can't have millions of people. That's why that was one of the kind of the main feedbacks I had throughout the whole weekend. But the quality is always great. I would happily go to any major that was there, even if I was competing. In the sense of a spectator for an open, it is a bit more difficult, especially with how it is. But definitely 100%. It's just such a good venue. It's literally if you had one, it would just be S tier. Like
yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, I think we're kind of spoilt in a way with the quality of it that's on show, especially from viewing from Twitch. I mean, I haven't been there. A mistake of my own. But Mike, what about you? What do you think, Wembley or Gfinity? What do you think was the best?
I mean,
those are the two standout ones in terms of European Halo. By the way, you're asking what I'm drinking. It's actually tea inside my Doug from Up mug. But yes, Wembley or Gfinity Arena there, Mike?
well, from an outsider's perspective looking in, I'd probably say Wembley. But as a player, I would much prefer the GFIN Arena because people, like the people who don't go to these events, don't understand how convenient everything is there. Because like it's part of a shopping centre. There's a Spoons, like a 15-second walk away. There's a Morrison's at the ground floor. There's there's a Nando's, the Pizza Express. It's within walking distance of all the hotels and all the main bars and things in the area. It's like it's a very even just outside of the GFIN Arena in itself, it's in a very desirable location.
Yeah. So
and Fulham's like arguably like the safest part of London as well.
Yeah. Well, this is something I want the Twitch chat to get involved in. This particular question, which I'm going to ask: has these LANs killed the social LAN? It's a tough question to answer, is it? I'll let you take it, Matt. What do you think?
I'd say not intentionally, definitely not intentionally. I think there's a kind of, especially with the way the kind of the scene is in total, how it's expected. So, for example, kind of you go from kind of H3 from kind of when I joined into the kind of H2A. People were playing to play, and then as soon as kind of the first Halo 5 Halo World Championship, when those invites were happening, you had to be top 8. Like the amount of snaking was unbelievable. People switching teams just to try and get a better seed. When it's the you got your hotel, you got your kind of accommodation sorted, your travel, you're able to get food and all that. Then trying to get players to go to a social land, for example, an ice series, just having them. Oh, you've got to pay for your own travel, you've got to pay for your own accommodation, your own food because the food's ridiculously expensive. There was just that sort of player entitlement that they were just like, why should I bother? I'll just wait until the next one kind of happens. Luckily, that didn't happen going forward. It only was like say 2 or 3 teams, but that kind of stuck at that point. It did change it for the worse, kind of for the social LAN aspect. But with the resurgence of kind of the grassroots element of it, hopefully, and more and more people now want kind of social LANs. I think it definitely could make a resurgence, but definitely has made an impact.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that in terms of the present and the future going forward. But just before we jump on to you, Mike, I'm just looking at the Twitch chat. Some of the guys writing in, Liam Havoc, he has said player entitlement has killed social LANs.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, Square EU, less people have Xboxes, so less LANs, plus more games to play now than before. It was just Halo. So yeah, I mean, what do you think, Mike? What's your 2 cents on this?
So going back to what we were talking about before with the social side of things.
Yeah.
I kind of for a lot of the lower tier, for the guys not competing, there are still people like me who I don't know if any of the people that have seen me at events know I spend like half the weekend just absolutely trashed off my face anyway. You sort of go there for a social and then a Halo LAN breaks out sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at the top level is definitely the social bit has gone because it's actually like going back to when Matt was joining, what was it, 2014, give or take. Then we were just going for the sake of just getting trashed and playing Halo. But you compare it to like even just when I came back to Wembley, there were legitimately chances for Europeans to like actually become professional and make livings at this game, and I think that opportunity changed a lot of a lot of people's mentalities towards the way they want to approach the game now.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'll just move on. Some guys, legend, esports in general has killed social LANs in my opinion. As the scene grew and everyone else sees Fortnites and games before that were throwing millions around. Makes no sense to spend X amount for nothing when other games can play for chunks of change. So as Liam said, self-entitlement is part of it, but mostly esports itself.
Yeah, before we move on, I just want to shout out Pinchy. I just say I need you to come up to us to when you want this level LAN to happen, because you keep saying it's going to happen and you're not giving us any details on it. And they're like the best social LANs.
So yeah, we've seen like we'll talk about actually in present. I'll move on to present. Anyway, in terms of EU teams in international events over the years, we talked briefly there. I said about Denver, but I mean, like, what do you think? Should EU have been aiming for top 6 every time, or top 4? Or should we dare to dream and say we should be winning one of these majors?
It all boils down to kind of the amount of players. NA, there's always going to be that better pool of talent, but if it just like you kind of seen within other scenes, they've just got to make that dive into it.
Yeah.
Yes, potentially, but there's no way you're going to do it. Kind of playing them in Europe when you're trying to play the best teams in NA, like the lag, the ping, it's just not a suitable environment.
Yeah. So like in terms of international performances, what do you think? Has EU Halo done well in this Halo 5 era? Mike, what do you think?
Definitely a lot better than they've done in the past. I think prior to like any kind of Halo 5 event, I think the most notable one we had was like 2010, back when that power lineup was like just breaking top 16 and top 12, and that was like uncharted territory. Whereas now it's like if a European team goes over and gets top 12, it's like a massive disappointment in comparison to what it used to be.
Yeah. Matt, what do you think?
It's a bit of both. Again, it just boils down to how well they play, kind of on, not on the day. Sorry, how well the talent pool is. I would have to kind of pass on the question because I wouldn't have a good enough answer for it to be perfect.
Yeah. Moving on, just briefly, I mentioned it at the start of the show. It was something that struck me, especially with the last Halo event. Attendances from EU teams dropped off quite significantly over the years, actually. I know that the last one seen something like 37 teams, but that doesn't paint the whole picture in terms of the EU community. So, stretching back, World Championships in 2016, 16 teams. World Championships in 2017, 28 teams. HCS 2017 had 29 teams. And Halo World Championships in 2018 had 28 teams. Now, when we look at HCS in London, the most recent one, there was 37 teams. However, 12 of those teams were international teams. As you're aware, the guys like Splice and Tox and all coming over. But there
were like 3 or 4 like international amateur teams going through as well.
Yeah. So I mean, there was
open bracket.
It was one of the smallest open brackets that I remember seeing in terms of EU Halo. There was 25 European teams that we can count anyway, unconfirmed, but we just quick glance and trying to get. We don't have the full rosters, but we believe that there was 25 teams. So it slowly declined. Halo 5 hit its peak in EU terms around 2017. What do you think? Do you think that is a factor? Do you think that interest did fall off? I mean, in terms of the EU community, and I'm not saying internationally, why the guys come over internationally.
It's, I think one of the big factors was there was with the year previously, there was so much interaction. There was so many cups, tournaments. It was just like everything was kind of popping. Back then, we even had Wednesday Customs. Was it Wednesday Customs? I'm sure it was Wednesday Customs. But there was a lot more interaction, especially as well with kind of the life as well, with kind of the refresh as well that kind of happened near the end cycle of Halo 5. It was just, I think it was more irritation for some people. Kind of, it did with not much being brought in to refresh it, which is luckily changing now. I think that was kind of the reason for it, and especially as well, before NA teams weren't really allowed to compete. With the last one that happened, they were finally allowed. With that kind of did have an effect with certain teams, certain players, like especially like we mentioned earlier with the kind of the player entitlement. Oh, why should I bother? Like these teams are going to just literally wipe the floor. They did, but it was that kind of mentality where there was just like it was just giving up really. But with it kind of coming back to kind of H3 now, it's kind of I would say kind of more of a level playing field, especially on how other teams have done, like the one EU team that went across. But with H5, there was just such a massive skill gap. As soon as the NA sides were announced that they were competing, that would definitely, I would say, had an impact.
Yeah, Mike, you were playing at several of these events. What do you think? Do you think that was a factor?
I think part of the factor was how frustrating Halo 5 can be online a lot of the time, especially when like there were these nagging issues that just weren't being addressed. Like the 2 most notable ones were like the team lobby glitch, where it was like very difficult, like a lot of inconsistencies of being able to change teams within a lobby without just having to back out or disappear off the forge and come back and stuff. I think the biggest one that sent a lot of people away was the heavy aim. The fact that the more wrecks you bought in the game, the slower it made your aimer, and it just kind of, the idea of things like that promoting things like Smurfs as well. Like Smurfing was a huge problem, especially for people just trying to get into the scene.
Yeah.
Because they grind for like a week. They get up to like that higher level to plat to like lower diamond, where you start seeing some of the competitive players, and then you just start seeing pros on Smurfs just getting absolutely raining them day in day out.
Yeah.
And kind of very demotivating.
One thing that I wanted to chat about next was the quality of EU events. I mean, for the last 3 years, we've seen the same team dominate every event in terms of EU's teams. Anyway, the Infused, the Fab Esports, whatever you want to call them, that same group and bundle of players.
The Jimbo Mose brand trio.
Yes.
And then whoever they had as the fourth.
Yeah. So I mean, like, do you think that in terms of quality in the EU, like EU suffered by one team dominating it all? Like, I mean, at least we've seen like Splice and Tox trade for a bit there, especially toward the end of Halo 5's life.
I'd say kind of more at the beginning. There was, especially with we had the Pro League. There was that hunger, and especially with that I always go to say Fabi. They had that hunger where they wanted to compete. We saw some teams that, especially during kind of the actual season element, would just completely give up at some points, and it would just be kind of a joke in some sense with kind of the determination they had, and with some other teams as well. There were also other factors. I think it was the first summer league. Like some players came down with illness and then ended up losing, but then ended up winning the series back. They dominated at a really good level, but then that kind of split happened, and then they came back together. Then Rustamania happened, so it just diluted it a bit, I'd say.
Yeah, I can't remember which event. Maybe Mike, you maybe refresh my memory. But was there not an event in which they were in the grand final or something like that, and one of the other sort of major EU sides were pretty close to beating them, only for like a connection issue? Was it? Was that one thing, or like the game lagged out or something? I can't remember.
There was the
that would have probably have been the 2018 Worlds, because that's when they just brought in the
LAN feature,
the offline LAN system.
Yeah, I think,
and it was still like there was a lot of disconnects that week.
Yeah, I remember there was some issue or something that there was a team that went up against them.
I've got a picture somewhere of like it was the losers bracket finals or whatever it was, when it was I can't remember the exact name of the team, but it was Snaky's team playing.
Yeah,
and they spent so long between the games that there's just Snaky literally just falling asleep in his chair. Just
yeah, Kimbo's just actually in the chat at the minute. He says games kept freezing and we had to restart. Yeah, so I mean, there's been some teething issues with Halo 5 in terms of the local LAN issue, and hopefully that'll come back to true LAN. It was the game's fault, and there was nobody really. The guys, it was a good game.
I think it was because they tried to put it in halfway through.
Yeah, it was. They've put everything halfway through. They put observer mode halfway through, theater mode, Forge. Everything has felt very much like. It's not what a Halo game should feel like. I mean, you start to feel like the likes of it came before Fortnite, but I mean something that was like unfinished and just throwing these things in. I'll get it in there eventually. But anyway, we'll move on. Next section of our discussion into the past, and I wanted to talk about community-run cups, community-run scene. We've had a number of different community-run organizations, tournament organizations come and go. The two main ones that have stayed is myself and Splinter. We've seen the likes of, if you can cast your mind back, we've seen the likes of Surrender, if you remember the guys in 2017 or 2016. Those guys ran a few cups. It lasted, I think, half a year. They ran. It was a decent few cups. We had Nade Straight run a few tournaments on his rebranded accounts. We had Halo France. We've had Halo France actually partner with us a few times. They've been pretty decent actually. They have quite a great quality setup. I know Romantu is a really quality guy in terms of production and the way he runs things. And we ran our league in sort of cooperation with those guys, and they did a really good job of it. We were really happy with it, and all the feedback that we got from the players was really positive. We've obviously had myself and Splinter as well, but what do you think about, and when you cast your mind back, Mike, what do you think about like that whole EU community run cup scene? Do you think it's when you look at like across the water, you look at the likes of PBL, you look at Greater Toronto Halo, you look at most recently the Halo Draft League has appeared. But what do you think about that in terms of the EU sort of organic growth within the community?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's still all the there was the Italian leagues that are going on as well.
Yeah, I've been trying to get into
It'd be
contact
interesting
with
to go
them
out as
actually.
well.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Halo Italia, really good organization too. Actually, we've partnered with them too. But yeah.
I think because of Europe as a whole is a generally, even at the competitive level, it's a much smaller player base than like over in North America, and because a lot of the organizers and things, and a lot of tournaments that are coming out don't really offer large prize pools, if any at all, and it puts the top players off from playing, and then it almost becomes, especially more towards the end, when like the player count was getting lower and lower, it's almost just people just doing it for memes and doing it just to like troll people more than anything else.
Yeah.
And it stopped getting taken as seriously by the community.
Yeah, definitely from my own experience anyway. Matt, what do you think?
Just to kind of touch on Mike's point, just it's a bit disheartening. You must definitely agree in this sense, like you were saying. I wasn't aware that people, in the sense that people just doing it for the memes kind of thing, but the amount of effort that these kind of community run cups put into, and I did not realize it was kind of done for the memes kind of thing. There were much higher kind of sign-ups and everything, but it, like you kind of said, if there's no prize pool, and it kind of again falls back to kind of the player entitlement, there's no drive. It was good, don't get me wrong, it was great to actually see like two 3 cups a week, the free-for-all ones. Like, they were brilliant. I think one of the best experiences I've personally had where I competed was for a community cup, was playing the blooming there was a big team battle tournament that was going on, and I can't even remember that it was literally 2 full squads of like big team battle. There was like Batchford, Moe's, Respectful. That was brilliant, but that was it. There was no real kind of drive after it.
Yeah. When you talk about prize pools, it was something whenever I started. Originally, I was Halo Ireland and UK. It actually was Halo Ireland. Started way back at the early years of 2017, the early part of it. But originally, I was totally against prize pools. I hated it. I thought when money gets involved, it becomes quite toxic and nasty, and it can sort of dilute that community spirit. People just sort of take aim at each other for no reason. But eventually, then, with our league that we've run 2 big leagues that stretched over like 2 or 3 months. I'd love to bring that back, but the player count's just too low at the minute. I'll talk about that more in our present feature. But the second league we ran in 2018 was a prize pool of over 250 quid. We had a simple £2 per player buy-in. Every team played £8. We had 30 teams sign up. We actually ended up having 34 teams as teams dropped out and teams bought in. We ended up.
Yeah, I dropped in and out about 4 times myself.
Yeah,
like
I know. Teams dropped in and out. We had Division 1 and Division 2, and then a Division 2A and 2B, and several cups. And that's what I mentioned about like Halo France. They got involved because they got like 3 or 4 French teams that came into the fold. We eventually ended up with, again, Looney and Warlord and all those guys winning. They beat the German team of Blitz and Rubenstein and all that. But the prize pool that we had was well over £250. It was good that we were able to, we give £40 to the second place and £200, I think it was. Or I can't even remember what it was. Looney's in the chat. He'd remember because I paid him. And yeah, Bad Dub or Halo Data Hive, he's in the chat. He actually did track all over the stats, and I feel so bad for him because the amount of teams that dropped out, and he had this great tournament site run for us, and it was a disaster because EU sides are just so changeable is the word. But yeah, it was great from that perspective. We've run a lot of cups and stuff in the past. Very proud of the leagues that we've run. Splinters Cups, excellent quality every time, and Lou's not here, but you got to give credit to him. He runs such a tight ship. All of his graphics, top end stuff, everything, organization, his streams that he puts out, his casting, everything done professionally, and I admire that. I don't know what your guys' opinion is of the whole, like, his sort of stuff either, but I'm sure it's probably positive.
He does it
Yeah.
on his own. Enough said. The man
Yeah,
is a legend.
exactly.
If
That's a massive workload for such little reward.
Yeah. I've been there too. It hurts. But it's tough running those things in our own. I mean, we had, like I said, 30 teams, and we were trying to like 30 teams. 30 times 4 is like 120 plus players bitching and arguing amongst each other, or to me, or to other teams, or Twitter beef that's happened. I mean, one of those people. There's a few of those people in the chat right now. That will probably be, you know, who were responsible for some of it in ways, but yeah, it's a difficult shift to run, and it's always been a difficult shift to run. But I've tried my best to try to keep it up. Halo France, they're now a crowd that's actually still active, and they've been very good. But in terms of that, actually, I talked about personalities. I'm just going to talk about what do you think of whoever's, like, who was in the past who run the Halo 5 sort of scene in terms of EU communities? Who's those personalities that you look up to and admire? Mike, we'll start with you.
Well, it's kind of difficult because there's never really been like that many people, especially at the top level, that really helped out the lower tier amateurs all that much, outside of like when you're actually at events and things asking for advice. There are a few people that like helped me. You know, I know Havoc's in the chat. I know he gave me quite a bit of advice way back when, in like the last Halo 3 when Matt started out as well. He gave me quite a bit of advice then.
Yeah.
But it's like there aren't really that many people around that help break down that kind of barrier to entry, especially for players who are just trying to like get out of the first round, or even just trying to like build up their confidence to want to come to an event in the first place. It's like the best bit of advice I can give anyone is just that one game on LAN is still, even with like dedicated servers and things today, one game on LAN is still worth 15 online for when it comes to trying to improve quickly.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? Before, we have a question for you in the chat, but we'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I'll answer that in one moment, just to kind of bridge on your point. I actually kind of agree with Mike. Liam, Havoc, definitely. Like when I was kind of fresh into it, literally one of the nicest people to kind of speak to, especially with the barrier of entry. He will always provide feedback in the sense of kind of the bigger picture, kind of community wise. I'd say it would be Meekle. Not many people would hopefully would know about this guy, Michael Valentine. He was the guy that he ran top mid, and then now kind of has kind of elevated himself, is the best term I can use, working with Gfinity for a good couple of years now. He is literally he was the foundation for kind of some of the rules for in the European side. He's kind of been I definitely say I've learned a lot from him. And actually, even speaking of kind of the top mid duo, Roy, sadly he's kind of a family man now, but those two in the kind of the grand scheme of things, but definitely Havoc for kind of the player side. Oh, and Looney Dogs as well. The kid's the nicest kid in the world. He was one of the first interactions I had with kind of players themselves. Like quite a few people. I don't really see any kind of real bad eggs. It's just I don't know how to word it. It's just people have opinions. Some people don't like these opinions, but there's no, like we kind of bridged up the toxicity. It's nothing compared to other scenes at all. Definitely not. If there's kind of toxicity, it's such a minor thing. It's just people blow it out of proportion because it's such a tight-knit community.
Tashi has said Meek.
Oh, sure.
Meekle.
Yeah, that's the Michael Valentine, the god.
Yeah. For me, it's actually Onset. Onset and Wonderboy have drove this community a lot of the time for me. Inspiration as well. These guys have all the time running these tournaments, casting, and getting to where they are in terms of the international stage and that, and they're one of our own, you know. In terms of the casting talent and everything, EU dominates. You've got Lottie, you've got Harry, you've got Onset, Lethal, Gaskin. There's so much you know casting talent in here outnumbers everybody else. which is always a positive thing, and it's definitely been a positive thing in terms of the past, in terms of Halo 5 era. But yeah, I'll just, before we jump into the next segment in terms of the present, one question for you there, Mike. Just touching on your point, it comes in from Matty Rums, who is the mod for Reddit's competitive Halo and also runs our partner Noob Combo on Hero Halo anyway. He says, you mentioned how NA teams coming over to London was a sort of turn off for EU teams. I know a lot of people over here in NA wish EU teams could play in NA more because we know it could help EU teams get even better. Do you think more international non-NA events would benefit the EU scene or even be more of a deterrent?
No, more events, the better. The more events we have, the more. It's kind of the whole reason we've created this. The only way that the talent or that skill ceiling is going to improve is the constant competition. If there are more international, well, rather than EU or NA, international event, there's more of them. Players are going to get better matches. They're going to be playing against NA teams. If it's a logistics thing. It's the hardest thing in the world to kind of think of how you're going to be able to get together. But it is, yes, 100%, 1,000%. But it's got to happen. If it can grow to where you can have kind of majors, invitationals, all that thing, like the South by South, that's a perfect example. It does suck. There's no EU team, but if there was just more of that kind of amalgamation of the different sides of the great pond, as it were, the skill ceiling would just get higher and higher. And well, for example, with the first Halo World Championship and with the I can't remember the event where we got top 6,
Denver.
That was literally because they boot camped for so much. And back with the Epsilon roster, the reason being was they were playing quite a lot of NA teams previously. We may forget that the whole kind of, they played Optic before the game even came out, for example, and then at the Gamescom kind of invitational, if that consistent competition happens where we have international talent competing, of course it's going to get better, but it's got to happen first.
Yeah. Just before we jump on to the next segment of the podcast, if you have been following Europa Halo, you'll have seen what I had put out earlier on. It's a tweet just asking 3 things. If you want to get it read out at the end of the show, you can send a reply to that tweet. The questions are: what is your best memory from an EU event or cup? Will Halo 6 or Halo Infinite bring the EU community back, and why? And does Halo 6 need a BR mode? And we'll get into that later in the show, but especially with the likes of Apex jumping out of nowhere in the last week, we'll definitely talk about that. So we're going to jump in now and take a jump into the present. Okay, so you will have seen actually in the background of that was the recent UGC Halo Classic, and we're going to talk all about that move. All of a sudden, we talked about the previous era of Halo 5. It's now the second coming, as some would say, the second coming of Halo 3. What's your thoughts initially on Halo 3? I mean, some people, especially the newer kids, I grew up with Halo 3. I remember playing in high school with they get like bad dub there, Halo Data Hive, playing Halo 3 whenever I was in high school. I know a lot of people are purists, love Halo 2. I love Halo 2. Yeah, I love it. It's great. I've only recently got into it more as the MCC came out and stuff. But the likes of you, Mike, I mean, you're obviously a bit younger than us, I think. So you know,
not that much.
Well, you'd be able to sort of give us a much better perspective on what Halo 3 or what you think of Halo 3 coming in. Like, so what do you think?
You know, for starting 24, I'm not that young compared to everyone else.
Yeah, well,
but well, for us in Europe, this is actually like the third coming of Halo 3.
Yeah.
because after a year of Halo 4, we'd had enough of that, and we had exactly the same thing last time when we went back and played another year of Halo 3 before what's it called, MCC came out.
Yeah.
So it's not anything we haven't done before. Personally, like, I'll be going whatever Halo we play anyway, just because I get to go there, I hang out with my friends, I get ludicrously drunk, play Halo, and I have a good time anyway. But I think knowing that it's Halo 3, trying to bring back some of the older players and trying to bring a breath of fresh air into the scene to try and revamp it, I think it's a good idea. But it's only just at the moment, it's just putting a plaster on a much larger problem, which is that, you know, we've been lacking a new, fresh, competitive Halo for a very long time now that's actually been, like, sustainable.
Yeah.
In its own right.
I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. I'll come to you, Matt, about it. But I'm just gonna read out some of the chat. Lord Relay, he said earlier, actually, hello from North America. So you're more than welcome actually to join the discussion here. Halo 2 greater than Halo 3. Kimbo, who's in on the chat, says Reach. Thumbs up face. Ego, who has jumped in with a bit of a comment here. It's a long one. Halo 3 is an amazing game, but in my opinion, it's a desperate nostalgia trip to boost the fan base again. But it's not fun to compete on an 11-year-old game when we have all vomited in New Era. Halo 3 is fun to compete. That's from Bad Dub or Halo Data Hive. Lord Relay again, I think Halo 343 is just trying to keep us placated until Halo Infinite drops. They don't want competitive to die out completely, which is true. And something that you've said, and it's sticking a plaster on something. We are stuck in a stale game of Halo 5. Halo 5 just wasn't didn't have that age. It didn't age right compared to other games, and a lot of people think that game needs to be fresh. We need to keep getting games pumped out. But you could argue, I think that's total bullshit, to be honest. You look at the likes of CS:GO, you look at the likes of Overwatch, you look at the likes of StarCraft 2. StarCraft 2 gets more average viewers, and that game's what, like 7 or 8 years old.
Siege is
more
a good
than
example
that,
as well.
And yeah, I mean, like, Rainbow Six Siege is an incredible game, actually. Like, that, it's really so esports focused, and just I really want to get into it, but I know I've just heard that it's just full of toxic people, and I don't want to jump into that. I'm happy enough playing Smash at the minute to keep my competitive streak going. But what do you think, Matt, coming in? I know you've mentioned Halo 2 is better than Halo 3, but what do you think about the current state that we went into now, that the present day Halo competitive scene isn't Halo 5, it's not Halo 2, it's not Halo 2 Anniversary, it's Halo 3?
So don't get me wrong, it's good. Personally, Halo 2 Anniversary is my personal preference. However, we have seen a resurgence. The people that did not want to play Halo 5 have now returned to play Halo 3. If you look in the sense of the kind of the European community, for example, there are players that I have not seen, people who have got rid of their Twitter accounts, just kind of don't really play. As soon as that was announced, they came back. For Flames is a perfect example. He kind of dropped off the radar for about must be over a year. As soon as that Halo 3 announcement happened, he was back, and he was off to America. Like, it's definitely a nostalgia feel. Don't get me wrong, it's good nostalgia, and kind of that's the age we're living in at the moment, where it is you want to get that nostalgia hit. But I personally think Halo 2 Anniversary never got the chance that it deserved. And at the time, it was a bit broken. It's fixed now. It's great. It runs great, but it looks a lot more polished. It just, sadly, there's only like 3 or competitive maps, but I can't disregard of the effect that the announcement of Halo 3 has had. I don't have the specific number of the amount of teams that competed at the Classic. Just seeing if I can actually get that there.
Matty Rose would know.
96, I think it was. There were like 128 passes, but there were like 96 teams actually showed up.
Yeah, that's more. I think that's more than any in the Halo 5 era, anyway, internationally or locally.
That was insane. But that's the thing. if it's all about the way to word it best is is if they can drive that engagement, drive the interaction with the community, which they have been nailing lately, especially with I know you're in here, Tashi, your new social media producer.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that Lola or Muggsy or
Muggsy, yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, that was a brilliant move.
He's a Halo legend in the montage.
I'm actually going to raise that point later in the show, but you've actually raised it now. I'll raise that point in terms of the future, what I think of that for the future of Halo. I'll bring it up later. But before we jump into more discussion on this, I'm just going to read out some of the chat. Lord Relay, I'm playing MCC some, but I'm still playing Halo 5 just to get to the rank 152, which is actually an interesting point. I want Halo Infinite reward for getting to the 152 rank. Without that incentive, I'd be playing MCC full time. Legend chat, the current example now shows why the EU scene struggles so much though. Halo 3 is the current competitive game. Grassroots has been announced. So far, Halo 3 is in NA and has had 3 events announced and happen, including a massive prize pool invitational. Most, if not all, grassroots applications have gone to NA personalities and none to the EU community organisers or tourney organisers, which is something which we hopefully will be trying to change with Nightfall and the Nightfall project that we're just discussing, that Europa, Halo, Splinter and other great minds within the EU community is going to merge together to create this Nightfall project. So Europa Halo going forward will not run cups as Europa Halo anymore, but we'll run as Nightfall. Throwing that in there now. But one thing, Outcast Steve, he's actually starting to go into the point that I was going to raise next. He says, I think this is making the best of a bad situation, but with how different Halo 3 is now, or how far ahead on game time, some people are it's a tough situation, very alienating for new gen players. It was one of the things is how the new kids who younger than all three of us come into Halo 3 and get used to the classic movement compared to advanced movement that games like Call of Duty, Halo 5, even Halo 4, all these things have announced or took on board advanced movement, rather than you look at classic movement in games like Halo 3, Halo 2. It's hard to debate it because you look at games like CSGO, which runs very similar to the Halo series, and people always argue that you need sprint. But Matty Rum says there was 89 teams at Halo Classic, so
that's still much better than
pretty good. So what do you think, Matt, from that perspective of this classic movement, advanced movement? I have my own opinions on what Halo 6 should be, and I know you guys nearly punched me or hit me in the chat for it, but I say those things out of thinking about the future. So what do you think, Matt?
Advanced movement's here to stay no matter what anyone kind of says.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, there's a way of balancing it. Originally, like, for example, Halo 4, you could just run. You could run away from a gunfight. No one's going to touch you. Oh, I've run away from a good fight. Oh, I got my full shields. There was that balance. That was good. Admittedly, it was still sprint. It just depends on how Infinite kind of goes into it. But think about it. With advanced movement, Call of Duty is a prime example. They went from Black Ops? Yeah, Black Ops 3, and then straight into Infinite Warfare. There was just advanced movement, and developers listen at the end of the day. How can I word it? We are still the consumer. If it's not going to, if they put like wall running everything, it may sell. It may not sell as well as a kind of classic movement. I think we're going to get that kind of balance, or it's going to be a very purist things, for example, which you could segregate, where it could be you have your normal, and then you have your kind of esports ready product. So it just depends really on how 343 kind of goes with it. But personally, I don't care if the game plays well and it's fun. I'll play it. I played Halo 5 loads.
I'll tell you who knows the answer to that one. The answer to that one, somebody in the chat knows the answer to that one, but I'm sure he's not going to tell us until hashtag soon. Tashi, if you're listening, he's not going to tell us a damn thing. But my own perspective, I know. I agree. Advanced movement's here to stay. I think sprinting with limits and clamber should probably stay in terms of not from my own opinion. I like classic movement. as much as any Halo 3 purist or Halo 2 purist, but it's the fact that you need to appeal to an audience that has grown up around advanced movement. You're talking about, like, I mean, the consumer age group, as you get older, you've less time for games and that. So, I mean, when you're trying to target these guys who grew up with Halo 3, they're all moved on with their lives. They're married, have kids, don't have time to play games. You're trying to appeal to this bigger market, which is your teenagers, your young adults. By the time Halo 6 comes out, I could be, tied up in other things too. Like, I may not have time to play it or run Halo, Europa Halo, Nightfall. I keep trying to remember this Nightfall now. Look, I think advanced movement has to stay in some respects, but I would like to see some sort of throwback is the word to the classic movement. I don't think now as well it has to stay, because later on we'll talk about the future, we'll talk about battle royale modes and stuff. I think that for advanced movement, that's going to be a tricky one, because you're not going to play classic movement battle royale. I don't think that'll be a lot of people's cup of tea, especially with the way Fortnite's played, Apex, all these games coming in. It's all fast paced. Yeah, I know. No, Shane, you're all right. Don't worry about that. We have plenty of stags to go to this year. So with that, Mike, what do you think on your whole thoughts about it for the future? I haven't asked you, have I?
No, not yet. So, like, I know you mentioned briefly a little bit earlier, it was like about how some of the older players have got so many thousand hours like ahead of everyone coming back to Halo 3 before. And then you still look at teams like the Elevate team that went over to UGC, and you put them under bracket of Halo 5 kids, but then you get players like Neptune who are legitimately only like 17 years old. When Halo 3 would have been competitively around before, he'd have been 10. So, like, players like that have shown you don't need to necessarily be that far ahead just to catch up. It's more about the hours you put in now. So, but for going forwards now, I'm a classic Halo person. I'm a purist. I'm one of those guys. I hate it. I hate advanced movement. I don't like it. I don't think it has a place. And my theory has always been that it was just like, it was originally brought in because some of the other games at the times of those releases started incorporating it. And my theory was always just that they did it just to try and stay competitive with the other like games in the market.
Yeah.
But it's like every time a game's come out with advanced movement, within a couple of years we've gone back to a game with classic movement. Even before we went back to Halo 3, like the second time for Europe, the I-50 event in Halo 4, we modded the absolute bejesus out of the game, took out all the advanced movement, changed all the aim assist, changed things like that, and it was arguably a much better game. We were frowned on it a lot, especially by the devs at the time, because essentially we just hacked the game apart and made it better. But I think it goes to show, like, from a casual standpoint, advanced movement is fine. If you just want to jump on with your friends, you just want to start running around in Super Fiesta, wall running, ground pounding, Spartan charging. It's a good laugh when you try to play casually. But I don't think at a competitive level, advanced movement has that place in Halo. Especially with, like, the biggest thing is the kill times are just too long.
Yeah.
If you're like, it gives you too many bailouts for terrible decisions. Like, you play Halo 3 and you get caught like on Heretic bottom middle against like 4 pro players, that's it, you're dead. On Halo 5 you can just sprint, thrust, clamber, do all this fancy stuff, and you're out of there.
Well, I suppose though, looking at that, some people might say that's a skill that could be brought forward. I mean, like, if you were able to get out of one of those situations, it would end up in a highlight reel somewhere. I mean, it's I know what you're getting at,
debatable.
But it's debatable. What I was going to jump into next, there's a lot of controversial points I'm going to hit in this one, in this present topic, because we're going to talk about some real some people have raised it in the chat. We'll talk about it more. In my notes anyway, you'll see one of the last points actually for this section. How is there still a market for Halo 5? I mean, I've got a lot of people who've DM'd Europa Halo and asked, is there going to be any more Halo 5 tournaments?
The biggest selling point is that Halo 5 still has observer mode, where the other Halos don't.
Makes my life so much easier.
Yeah, and and then because you can run the cup, but then you can stream it, you can cast it, you can do things like that much better than you can, especially online. Inline it doesn't matter as much because you can just capture card up at Xbox, but
oh yeah, sure. Let's just capture card 8 Xbox. That's still very difficult.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Trying to capture 4 Twitch streams of Halo 3 for a free-for-all tournament, that was difficult, especially when you're trying to run it over 2 PCs or a PC and a laptop with a capture card, trying to take the pressure off the CPU, trying to actually then stream that. That is what the difficulty that I had with that recent cup that I done. But like, it's the only way I can see that we can actually get some sort of cast in with Halo 3 or MCC. Yes, it's a pain in the ass, but it's all we've got.
True, and yeah, it is possible. But hopefully, they if we've got another year of Halo 3, or potentially if they go onto a different title in a year's time, that must be on their radar. If they're going to be kind of committing kind of that amount of time before the next title is out, there's still that massive announcement that's coming by South by Southwest. Imagine that they import. It's not as simple as lots of lines of code, but imagine if this has been in the pipeline for a while. They know that it's near enough, well, not impossible, improbable to get a full kind of spectator mode without the use of capture cards. If that was in place, it'd be perfect.
It would be, but I don't think they're going to waste their resources and time and effort on that sort of thing, especially with all what's to come in the future. I can't see it happening. I know a lot of people have asked that and put on Twitter and said, oh, it'd be great for 343 to do this and to do that, but it's just not realistic. Like, what I was going to jump on to next is, I mentioned it actually just a moment ago. I recently ran a cup. It was a free-for-all cup. Splinter hasn't run any cups in a while, but it's still obviously one of the big EU cups runs. We've had Nail Street, who's announced that he's going to do some global tournaments for Halo 3 or Halo 5, I'm not sure. Halo 5, no, it's Halo 5, I think he's still going to go roll with. But I mean, like, I've had to adapt because the present player count is so low that we've had to adapt with things that aren't 4s, because not everybody's going to be able to grab a 4 so easy. Some people have like attitude issues to other players, beef or whatever you want to call it, and the chances of getting a full 4 is quite low. You'll probably get maybe 4 teams, 5 teams. Whereas if I get a free-for-all, I can sign up 40, 50 players all of a sudden, and I can run 4 groups of 8 or 5 groups or 6 groups, whatever it is, and I've done that in the past. We've had to adapt. I felt like I've had to adapt to this Halo 3 change and the current scene that is happening right now. The state of EU Halo is that our player count is lower than ever. We're all starving for more Halo, and that's what I'm saying. This is controversial. I'm just saying, like, we are starving for more Halo, regardless of the fact that Halo 3 is out. We are all waiting and just ticking over. And I mean, like, I'm just trying, like the likes of Europa Halo, the likes of Splinter, the likes of the Nightfall project is going to be just trying to hold the door, as Hodor would say.
But again, it's one of the things. If you can kind of get the engagement and kind of bring them kind of into the conversation. For example, if, like you were saying, like the draft cup and the free for all, like you get more numbers, why don't like with the community customs, try something along those lines? There's ways that you can kind of get people to kind of meet other people, because like you play matchmaking, I don't know, like get people to interact with each other more. Like I think that's kind of the best way that we can kind of increase the kind of the player count. So
yeah,
we've got to try it. We're
going to jump into some really controversial stuff, because I was just going to call out the likes of if you talk about customs, you need big personalities. You need the likes of Onset and everybody to make a community customs night or whatever. Because, I mean, if I say that, I might get it. But if you say like Onset's doing one, he could get a whole full big team battle for the crack, like for the fun, for the banter of it, and you could really have something driving there weekly sort of thing. But those guys are just so busy and they're doing so well for themselves, and I envy the fact that they have this career in esports and I don't. But and I'm just back pumping, working with chemicals, sitting, normal day job. These guys are out in different places across Europe, casting FIFA and that's amazing, and fair play to them. But I think that we need somebody, a personality, to step up and keep the scene alive. And is that going to be Nightfall? Is Nightfall, do you think, going to be successful in running that, or what's your prospect for our project?
Well, it's whatever we give, we get from it, really. I'm 100% behind this. This has been in the pipeline for so long now. Like, we've got some of the, not to sound big headed, but we have some of the kind of best TOs and kind of support that we have in a non-professional sense. Yeah, we have some of the best support that we could get. There's always potential. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We'll try again. At the end of the day, like, this community is given so much, kind of, in my sense, it's given me kind of my career, for example. There's no harm in trying to give it back. So yeah,
the big aim in which we are sort of targeting is the fact that we be given grassroots status, or the grassroots program, access to the grassroots program. We have, now, not to give away too much detail, but we have looked at the likes of LANs. We've been in talks with, or tried to start opening talks, positive talks with people who are able to host or give us a bit of point us in the right direction in terms of LANs. Not to give too much away, because we're sort of like, we've just announced this Nightfall podcast, Nightfall project, Nightfall everything, but our aim is to be grassroots and to supply the EU Halo, because I mean, like, will there be an EU LAN or HCS grassroots for European Halo? Because in a way, I feel like, has the EU community been abandoned by Halo or HCS? Because we're not hearing, I mean, like, one of the guys pointed out, we've seen, one of the guys in the chat we've pointed out has seen 3 or 4 events announced in North America. All these guys getting, streamer status of grassroots, but what's on the EU side? I mean, we've got nothing. I know Intel, we've received some emails, or certain people have seen some emails. We're not going to name names and what was in those emails, but in ways I felt like EU has been sort of abandoned because of those early signs. What's your thoughts on that, Mike?
Well, I think going back to the last point about, like, the community dying, when we don't have events, people don't play the game generally online anyway in Europe. If something gets announced, most players might start playing again. Obviously, we're not gonna, because it's been so long. I think at this point there are some people that are just done for good. But then, going forward, I think, like, there's not been any reason for us to play, and then especially because Halo 3 has been the main focus, and I don't know if you've been seeing all the drama on Twitter. Like, I'm guilty of a lot of it myself, about complaining about the choice in servers that 343 like to give us when we're trying to play Halo 3 Team Hardcore.
I think that's well beyond the point of probably fixing. I think that, like I said, it's the same thing as Observer. They probably don't want to put any more additional resources into fixing that game at this stage of its life cycle. I mean, MCC's been out for 4 or 5 years now.
And to be fair, it's a huge, massive step up from where it was at launch.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember
this is like 95% complete now.
I remember getting it in a game store in Belfast at midnight, driving up the town, getting it, and then that night couldn't find a game, couldn't load the game. The game was just broken, absolutely broken on start, and it was just so disheartening, disappointed. It's obviously in a much better state now, but we'll talk about the future. We'll talk about Infinite and what Infinite needs to be, but yeah, for me, I don't know. I don't know what I want to play at the minute. I don't have any appetite for Halo personally at the minute. like I said, I'm playing Smash, I'm playing Red Dead, I'm playing StarCraft, I'm playing Overwatch, I'm playing Apex. Yeah, me and Bang, Mr. Bang, Monster Bang. He actually, now there's an actual one. He refused to cast the last tournament, not because it was Europa Halo, not because of he was busy. He refused to cast with me the last tournament because why? His massive hatred to Halo 3. He hates Halo 3 with a passion.
I suppose Josh is a Halo 2 guy, isn't he? More than anything.
Yeah, so I told him that for the draft cup he can come back and just hurl abuse about Halo 3 if he wants. If that makes him happy. Anyway,
that is a very Monster Bank thing to say.
But quick one: if anybody in the chat, I mean, a lot of you guys are European in the chat. What do you think? Has HCS abandoned EU, or am I being too harsh? Because in some ways, I feel like it has, because we're Halo 5 stopped doing events back in September, October time, and we're now nearly half a year from then. I mean, it's 5 months now, nearly 6 months, and nothing from the EU side. I mean, that was the problem. Actually, I forgot to mention that in the past, but that was the problem for a lot of people getting disgruntled with Halo and the competitive scene, was that we would get a LAN and then we'd get not any bit of news for ages. Like, I mean, absolute ages, and then all of a sudden, with like 4 weeks, all of a sudden this wee window, 4 weeks, it's like announced LAN.
Yeah.
And everybody's starving and yapping for about 2 months before it. Looking jealous at North America and all its glory. Anyway, I'll talk about more of that in the future and what I think needs to be set up in terms of the EU scene for the future. But what do you guys think in the chat? I'll read out anything. Socro.
Can I just quickly take this? So I mentioned and Roy. Roy is Socro, the OG Halo.
Big Roy Green.
Big Roy.
He says, "You only need to give me £20 and I will return and bring greatness to European Halo once more."
God, send me your PayPal details right now.
So, professional players straight up off the Twitch chat. Lord Relay, from an NA perspective, they've definitely abandoned you with this Halo 3, Halo Classic cycle. No dedicated servers on MCC, etc. When is the stream for picking the draft cup? I'll get to that at the end of the Twitch chat or Twitch stream. We'll talk about that because the captains will be announced at the end of this week. Mike, are you going to be a captain? Whoa. I'm going to talk to different people about getting captaincy in that, because to be a captain you have to stream pretty much, because I need a perspective. I need like a perspective of like one team A here and team B there, and we can roll with the stream that way. But yeah, Lord Relay, I think, hits the nail on the head. He thinks we've definitely been abandoned from the Halo 3, Halo Classic era or cycle that this is. It's definitely something to think about. So now, if you guys have nothing further to raise, we'll jump into the future, or what the future of EU seed of Halo has to offer. So now we're talking all about the future. What is the future of EU Halo? What is the future of Halo in general? We talked a bit about advanced movement, and I tried to get away from that, to be honest. The future, is Halo Infinite going to be late 2019? Is it going to be 2020? Is this going to be 2021? What do you guys think? Is it, like, all the signs to me point that it's going to be 2020, late 2020.
I'm happy for it to be 2020, but like, I don't want it to be rushed out and have another case of what's happened with Halo 5 and MCC, where it's been rushed out and it's obviously not been finished and there's lots of bugs and things left in the game. So I'm happy for it to be a little bit later if it means that it's been tested and it's actually finished and it's a proper working product this time.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll jump into that actually. But I think everything needs to be there on launch. To be honest, I think nothing staggered this time. No Observer staggered, no Theater staggered, no Forge staggered, no Land staggered. I think everything needs to be there from the get go, because otherwise that game's not going to survive. People are just going to be like, this is the same old story, the same old Halo 5. Why should I buy Halo 6 whenever
Here's your answer. It's on PC.
And that's a huge... That's actually something I actually want to jump into later, but we can jump into that right now. Will PC affect the Halo community in terms of the EU? Because I'm sure we'll open to this brand new market. I mean, I know a lot of people play the likes of Fortnite and like EU personalities, the likes of Batchford and all that. They are playing like Fortnite and Apex on PC. What do you think? Do you think that PC Halo 6 or Halo Infinite will open up this brand new community from PC players into the EU scene?
Yeah, definitely. We'll play on hypotheticals here. Imagine classic movement. It's everything and more you wanted. With PC, you can rent servers. There's tournament support. You'll be easier to spectate. Everything kind of is, especially with how consoles are now. It's working towards it. For example, there are some certain games you can play on the Xbox with a PC and mouse. Everything's kind of pointing towards it. It's definitely gonna have such a massive impact. For example, you've seen like massive streamers, for example, Summit One, when Halo 5 came out for the Forge mode came out for PC. Admittedly, it didn't go as planned. However, those sort of personalities would literally just kind of elevate Halo to that next level. You'd even more than likely you would see personalities such as Ninja return, because PC is just a completely different league. I admit I am a console fanboy, but PC will elevate it to that next level. There's just no question about it.
Yeah. Mike, do you think it'll change for the better or for the worse?
It's going to depend where the support goes, because you look at the other side of it, Call of Duty's been coming out on PC every year for like 6 or 7 years, and no one really plays it. It's all about where the competitive side is, where the organisers want to shift their focus to whether they want to actually have PC tournaments, console tournaments, and if there's actually going to be like cross compatibility between the two.
Yeah.
You can play. Yeah.
Would you guys play on PC if it came out on PC?
Yeah.
Would that be your main focus? Would you scrap the Xbox, play PC full time Halo 6?
Yep, and I'd do it on a controller because I'm a scumbag.
Same.
Yeah.
I just follow wherever the focus goes. Well, if the tournament's on the Xbox, I'll play on the Xbox. If the tournament's on PC, I'll play on PC.
It's going to be interesting because I don't think, given the time thing which I mentioned, I think late 2020 is what we're going to look at. All signs pointing from the great all gaming games and game consoles and everything is that this could possibly be on the next gen console. It's actually very likely it's going to be on the next gen console because PlayStation announced this year that they're not going to take part in E3, which is big, and it's probably because they're going to announce a new console.
You see that?
And to retaliate to that, or to get to that, I think Microsoft will do the same, and one of those maybe launch titles, maybe not launch titles, but one of those titles that'll be on the pipework will be Halo Infinite. Maybe I think the console will be out before the game comes out, so it probably won't be a launch title, but I think it will be possibly demoed this year on the new console.
It'd be very interesting kind of going into this next gen because like if you look at your Xbox One now compared to what what it looked like when it came out, this is as close to as having like a Windows device because it is the same UI. It's slowly but surely, like, admittedly, yes, it's console gaming, but there's becoming more and more elements like an actual PC. There's the Steam box, for example. That was that initial bridge in between, but I just want this out already. Like, I cannot wait to see what the next gen looks like. If it looks anything like a GTX 1080 Ti, I'm sold.
No, Nate's asking in the chat, will it be 2020? It's probably likely it's going to be out in 2020. Like I said, all the signs are pointing that PlayStation's going to break away from E3 and probably have their own conference to announce a new gen PlayStation to the likes of Microsoft, I don't know if they're going to announce it at E3. There's not really any sort of signs or stuff pointing to E3 just yet, but I assume they might. It's not 100% guaranteed though. They might do it something different.
There's only one person in the chat that can answer that, and he's not going to say anything.
Like we said that before, there's one person in the chat who can answer that. He ain't going to say it. His lips, he ain't saying nothing.
He's been sworn to secrecy.
Confidentiality and everything. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, will EU community open up to PC players, because I'm sure PC players in terms of the first person shooters is quite strong actually in Europe.
Yeah,
you look at like a lot of those big consoles.
The skill gap is so much smaller.
CS:GO, like I mean, some of the top teams in CS:GO are European teams. So definitely, I think that with European community, if you'd say some of those guys will turn around in its own popularity. Hopefully, if the marketing hype on Halo Infinite is good enough, that those guys are going to be like, right, okay, let's give Halo Infinite a go. And if it is a good game, then
so just to kind of bridge on that with the marketing element, they the marketer that they had for I'm pretty sure about this, but the marketer that dealt with kind of the Halo 5 launch has actually returned and is dealing with the marketing. She was present during the Halo World Championship initially. So it looks like they'll probably go down that content train again to get the hype, because the hype for Halo 5 was insane.
It was, but it was entirely misleading. That was my only problem with it. I was so annoyed. I remember sitting listening to the podcast with your man from Ken Peel, who did like that. I can't remember what it is even called now, but he had like a story that was announced every week, and it was like a podcasty sort of thing. It came up on SoundCloud. Hunt the Truth. That's it. That was brilliant, but in the end, it had zero relevance to absolutely anything that was in the game.
Yeah, it was in the comics that it had the relevance.
In terms of the marketing, everything was done perfectly, except it was all lies.
Oh my god!
It was. I mean, like.
Yeah, I mean, Halo 5 didn't exactly live up.
Halo 5's campaign was pretty poor. It's low down on my list. Like, I mean, all that hype, and I was expecting this massive kick-ass fight between Locke and Chief, and you get a slow animation.
You just think Tashi has left the chat.
But no, I mean, constructive criticism. I mean, like, it's constructive criticism. I'm not like, I think those guys do an amazing job, and end of the day, they're getting paid to do this thing. I don't know how to code or make a game. I just do this stuff. But like, I just think that Halo 4, like, in comparison to Halo 4, I actually enjoyed Halo 4's campaign. I thought Halo 4 campaign was pretty deep, dark, and was pretty good. I just think that the multiplayer was poor. And then you got the contrasting side, which I thought Halo 5's campaign was awful, but its multiplayer was actually half decent. I mean, a lot of people shit on Halo 5 and multiplayer and everything, and it's not as good as Halo 3, it's not as good as Halo 2, but it actually wasn't bad. Like, when you look at it, you look back at it in a few years' time and you'll say, actually, Halo 5 wasn't that bad. The same way as I look back and said Reach wasn't that bad.
Oh, Reach was amazing.
I'm never gonna like follow a game where the competitive setting said you're running around with an assault rifle for a year and a half.
So this will be a bit controversial, but I loved initial competitive Halo esports just for one reason and one reason alone: Breakout. Breakout was
Breakout was
it was a good idea on paper.
It was a good idea on paper. It just wasn't really.
I wasn't around for that, so I can't really say anything.
It wasn't executed properly. I think once it got changed a wee bit, tweaked slightly, whenever they had like a flag in the middle, that was arguably better, and shotguns and stuff. That was a lot better than what we were given, because the original was you could just camp and just wait out the timer. You didn't have to push or press. If you were 2v1, you could, and you knew you weren't good enough, you could just camp and wait for the next round. Was frustrating. But Breakout was good. I'd like to see it return, to be honest. What was that other one? Elimination?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that one. If that one is done properly,
that was quite fun to play.
If that one's done properly, it could be competitive, I think. Like, if it's done with a lot more focus in Halo 6, it could actually be a competitive game type. Because it sort of, I don't know, it harks back to like the likes of CS:GO, where you value your life a wee bit more.
Hmm.
And you try not to make any stupid plays, or at least you get really you'll get punished something serious with stupid plays, like matchmaking kids. If there is a LAN in the future for EU Halo, what do you think? What would change if there was a LAN in the future for EU? If Tashi listens to this right now and says, "Do you know what? Feck it. Let's announce we have an EU Halo event in the pipe work. Let's just announce it right now. I'm convinced we need to announce this right now." What do you think? What would change? Do you think that EU community would come back to this future event? Do you think that the likes of guys who've moved on from Halo 5, Halo 3 would have gone on to Fortnite, Apex, Blackout? Do you think those guys would come back?
It all depends on I can barely say the second word, but the marketing, can't say it, strategy. There we go. The marketing strategy for it. If you can build hype for anything. If you can build that hype correctly, people will come. There are so many stories that haven't been told within kind of the European scene. We have seen glimpses of it, especially as well, kind of the videos that have come forward for like Worlds, for example. The 343 team for there tell brilliant stories, but there's so many more that could be told, which could be used to build up this event. I honest to God think if an event was announced right now, admittedly, yes, you wouldn't really get that many initial sign-ups. You wouldn't get like the whole like 24 teams sold out. Potentially, you could. That's I could happily see that number if it was on Halo 3.
What do you think?
To build it up, and then you'd see like some of the NA guys be like, this is looking pretty sick. Let's do this more, and then more hype. Work with the players, work with the organizations they represent, build that hype so you have a kind of a catalog of just content that you can just use. But it all boils down to kind of the broadcast itself, and then also kind of the event itself, kind of the structure and the format of it. But if it's done correctly, I think you could easily see the biggest event.
No, I think
with the European team.
Yeah. Just looking at the chat there, Lord Vader is asking what game for LAN. I would assume it'd be Halo 3. Halo 3 would probably be the LAN choice because we haven't had one. We've had Halo 5 for the last few years, and I think there would be an appetite for Halo 3.
You'd be beating a dead horse with trying to get Halo 5 on LAN for Europe.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, Mike? If LAN was announced tomorrow, what's your opinion on it?
Well, the three biggest things to like consider are like what's the format of the tournament going to be? Are we going to have like an open bracket? Are there going to be pool play, chat bracket, things like that? Is it going to be region locked to just Europeans, or is it open to everyone, even if it's just opened up to like EMEA, even though we'll probably only get like one or two extra teams at most? And what are the prize pools going to be? Because if the prize pools aren't high enough for like going back to the Insomnia days where first place barely even broke you even for the cost of going to the event in the first place,
you got a pair of headphones.
Is that gonna? Yeah, you got a pair of headphones and like your train ticket.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much it. But are there going to be enough incentives for so many top level players to commit to the event? I mean, the lower tier, there's probably going to be somewhere in the region of like 16 to 20 amateur teams, regardless of any of those. But the answer is are there going to be enough incentives to get the top level players to commit and like actually try for the event?
Okay.
Because there's a difference between getting top level teams to commit and then just getting them to actually like properly sweat their balls off for it.
Yeah. So we'll quickly run through some of these points because I'm aware of time. The big one, actually, we'll jump on to this one. It'll cover a few points. Battle Royale. Does Halo 6 need to have Battle Royale to survive, Matt?
No, initially, but yes, for it to survive.
Mike?
Yeah, it doesn't need it, but like I'd rather the rest of the game be finished than waste resources on a Battle Royale mode that would just be following a trend.
Yeah, I think looking at Battle Royales at the minute, you look at Battlefield and what a mess Battlefield 5 is.
What? No. We'll move on now. We'll move on. That's not it.
I love Battlefield. I think Battlefield's better than COD, but I just think in terms of sales and that, and the marketing and the way they've done the staggered, they've done a staggered release of Battle Royale. Is it even out yet?
No, it's
no.
out.
So I mean, that's what I mean. Like they had an unfinished game. If they would have had that on launch, it probably would have sold a lot more. And that's the point I'm trying to get across here. Does Halo 5 or Halo 6 need to have a battle royale mode to survive and to get those sales? I know the marketing team is going to do probably an outstanding job, like you mentioned before, but like a lot of the appeal nowadays, I don't think this trend of battle royale games is going to die for another few years, unfortunately. I know I don't mind battle royale games. I just don't think they're as good as everybody hypes them up to be. But I think that in some ways it does need to have it to survive and to appeal, to get people into the community, get people into the community that play competitively. You get the likes of Ninja on board again, you know, big Twitch streamers, because if you have a battle royale game, Ninja's going to stream the hell out of that one, like because he's a Halo fan, he's a Halo, originally started in Halo, he's gonna love that one. Next point, jump on to how competitive settings will be decided. Will players be given free reign, or will 343 be 343? That's the point. I don't know who wrote that note. Was it Mike? Yeah, it was Mike.
That's me.
Okay. Well, then we'll let you answer that question and explain into what you meant there.
So what I meant is that did you guys ever see the Dear 343, or the letter to 343 that I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Green Skull or someone made about a year ago, maybe a bit less.
Probably did, but nothing coming to memory.
And there was interviews with pro players. There were like 4 or 5 people he spoke to, but the only 2 that came to mind.
Oh
were Ninja
yes.
and Midwin.
I actually remember
Off the top of my head, and they talked about how the competitive settings were decided through the first half of Halo 5, and how it was very much like the players weren't given kind of the free reign to decide the settings that maybe we used to have in like pre-Halo 5 days, where it was almost exclusively decided by the community. So are we actually going to be allowed to choose and decide our settings, and like which members of the community are like going to be part of the committee, so to speak, as to what settings are going to be tested, what settings are going to be considered.
They have a pro team signed up this time round. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with. I mean, Clutch is involved in that team, and I have a lot of respect for Clutch. I know he's a sort of a Marmite sort of guy. He's a Marmite sort of guy. You love him, you hate him. I think he's like a Roy Keane of the casting talent. You know, he just gives you it straight, and he doesn't give a shit. Like, you know, I think he's doesn't hold back, and I think he's right in 90% of the case. Anyway, but Matty Rum's saying, don't forget though, 343 has Clutch, and the rumour is Midwin and Hines is joining 343 pro team. There's only one person on the chat who can answer that question. He's not gonna open his mouth about that. But what a signing that would be to have Midwin and Hines brought in. It would definitely probably point you in the direction, or will let you know the direction that they're probably going to go with Halo Infinite. If 343 is going to actually listen to that pro team is another question. Because
that was a big problem with like some of the before they took the assault rifles out and the settings that were given then. Yeah, I couldn't speak for so much because I wasn't around, but from what I've seen, it was like some of the pros are like, we want this, and this changed, and 343 were like, no, we want to change this, and this, so we're going to do this instead. Yeah.
So I mean, like, I know a few guys who have developed games in the past, and they'll listen to, community feedback of what you need, what they think is right for this, and their own attitude is, I don't care, it's my game, this is the way I'm going to make it, And I hope that there's a bit of compromise and a bit of back and forth between the pro team and the developers, and that we don't see something that Matty Rums has said you'd hope they learned their lesson.
They have definitely got better with their interaction with the competitive side. They definitely have improved with that. It kind of felt initially when Halo 5 was out, don't say a thing, don't talk to anyone kind of thing, and then kind of people move on along those lines. It actually kind of opened up over the past 2 years, and now it's actually there is more of a clear line of communication. I honestly think they will take on feedback. At the end of the day, they have to, otherwise no one's going to touch the game kind of thing. But it's that balance between everything. If you did everything that the community asked for, you wouldn't have the same game. It would just be everything. It would be like what the Destiny competitive scene is at the moment. It would be just a mess. But they will take it on. Like, it may not be dealt with there. They may not listen there. But be further down the line. There is always going to be kind of a timeline of stuff that's done. It's whatever kind of works quickest, and then the more advanced stuff is going to take longer.
Yeah.
For example, like the ground pound and the shoulder barge.
Okay.
They have to kind of look into that before they can just simply be, yep, we're going to do it.
Enough digging on this, because we're kind of jumping off the topic of EU side anyway. My next two questions will be more EU based. What do you think about the future for Nightfall? I mean, do you think that we will be able to deliver tournaments, deliver content? Do you think that this is the right thing to do? Do you believe in the project?
I wouldn't have joined the project if I didn't believe in it.
I know, but I mean, like, is it the way to go? I mean, at the same way as you could be banging your head off a wall, getting nowhere, but I really hope that this is the sort of thing and that we take inspiration from this grassroots program. If that ever comes to fruition, but I mean, like, do you think that the only way to get things done in the EU community now is to look at things like this Nightfall project?
Yes, definitely. At the end of the day, it's a project specifically at this time being focused at Halo. We all come from that kind of back. It'd be stupid not to combine forces and actually give the end user, the competitive players, the viewers, the spectators, the best that can be offered. It may not be blooming like ECS or like a CS:GO major level kind of quality, but at the end of the day, it's to continue that competitive scene, because we ain't got anything else going on at the moment.
Yeah. One of the last questions. We'll have two questions left. Actually, before we'll finish and wrap up the show, you mentioned it about. You guys mentioned about the new person who's taken over the HCS account and who's made it from what I felt was like a ghost town sometimes with their Twitter. But the content that's been thrown out recently has been top notch, and I hope to see it continue in the future. My question is, and it's a request to the guy in the chat who can't say too much about the next game, but it's my request to him, is what I feel that a similar setup, somebody needs to be a representative to handle both the NA side of your Halo and a European representative or European personality to take HCS or to be a HCS middleman is the word. Or somebody who doesn't have to work for 343 but just sort of handles HCS content or keeps this sort of scene alive over here, because I mean all those things, the clips I'm seeing, and they're top, they're unreal. I'd love to get on those things and I'd love to see my clips appear on the HCS Twitter, but there's nothing in terms of, I seen like maybe one European Halo clip appear on that, and that was somebody snipe up the lifts on
ads.
Ads snipe. That was ridiculous. But like everything else, in my view, has just been like NA. And I think that my request to Tashi, if he's listening still, is please consider in the future something for support for European Halo in terms of a representative like that, a community representative for solely European HCS. Because we've got nothing at the minute. What do you guys think? What's your opinion on that?
Are you gonna go first, mate?
It's all yours first, sir.
Well, I can't really say too much, but an email tomorrow might change a lot of that anyway. For some of the people that know or don't know. But yeah, I agree. Like, I'm not saying like, though there has to be a $1 million like prize pool in America and a $1 million in prize pool for Europe, because it doesn't. You need to take into account that Europe is still like a smaller player base. But the fact that we've gone from chances where players can actually like make a living off this game to there's like nothing unless you make your living off Twitch and streaming. There's almost virtually no reason to be playing Halo at the minute, unless you're just enjoying playing.
Yeah.
So it's a bit.
Lord Rela is saying that the biggest thing the EU scene can do is to grow is to make Lottie the face of every tournament, promotion, event, etc. She's a total lady. Yeah, sure. Lottie's been a very popular one and has rightfully earned her way up through the ranks in terms of the casting talent, um, and has done a stellar job and nothing but, you know, she's got my respect anyway. I think she's done a great job. What about you, Matt? But sorry interrupting you there, but I just seen that as quite a good comment actually to bring up. What do you think on the whole perspective of some sort of a community representative from EU to handle 343 side of things?
It makes complete sense to have it like across other kind of titles, much bigger titles. Definitely, they have those divisions where it is, but because we are a kind of a minority player base. It's a deficit. It'd be a pure deficit for them. The one thing that for us to kind of grow all together, it doesn't matter about them. The actual content creators that we have, there used to be so much content, like just as I kind of entered the scene, and it's just kind of filtered off and stopped. Yeah, of course we've had the ad apocalypse and all that sort of thing, but there were montages, there were event montages, there were sniper ones. People just need to kind of get off their ass, kind of stop about it, and actually kind of
and you know what,
do something about it, because the only way you're going to get that, encourage people and support people's content themselves.
You were just saying that, and Batchford's actually just wrote in the chat he's listening. Shout out to Batchford. But EU players need to make content and stop being negative Nancy's. Real talk. EU will grow if that happens, and you raised that, but I think that's a double-edged sword. At the same time, a lot of people won't make content if there's no reward, there's no representative to handle a community over here. I know there's a load of guys, the likes of Batchford, who does great work in terms of his streams and that, and the likes of Onset, who's used to stream quite regularly now before he's gone off and did his FIFA esports stuff. But you need something, I think, that who'll handle all that content and have the backing of 343, the backing of HCS to develop, I don't know, content on their scale, regular content each week. Especially with Halo 6. I'm not asking the first to happen tomorrow, Tashi, if you're listening. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. If it is to happen tomorrow, I'm available. But or we're available. Nightfall's available.
I'll send you my PayPal.
Yeah, EU community is shite, says Sam Shots. Yeah, in ways it's shite, yeah. I can agree with that, but in ways it's great.
Agree with that.
The making content, we've tried to push out content. It's hard to get people to actually to send you in content. We tried before, and I played it before this podcast we had a Players of the Week one. It was done pretty well. I enjoyed actually the production of it, and I thought it was done well in terms of Bang doing the commentary on that, and the quality of clips that we got in was good, but nobody wanted to send those in regularly enough, and it's difficult, and it's difficult because I'm not official or not grassroots, or Europe of Halo is not grassroots. It's big enough within small circles. My last question before the end is: has 343 Industries lost the trust of the player base, or lost the trust of the EU player base? Even to put that in correct context.
It's definitely faltered a little bit. I'd say that. However, there's always redemption at the end of the day.
Yeah,
there definitely is always redemption.
Yeah, there's a big chance for them to step it up, but like, a lot of us feel like the bar has now been set so low as a result of the way the last couple titles in the last few years have gone, that at this point it's all about actually like fixing the mistakes that have been made and bringing everyone forward, not just the game but the community, and engaging with people and actually like getting the feedback. And
I hope it hasn't damaged it enough that for Halo 6 that we see this total drop off in terms of the EU community. I think that they have done some things wrong, but they've also done some things right. Arguably ESL going and bringing back MLG and bringing in Gfinity, all good things. ESL going, as much as ESL are a professional outfit, the way they ran Halo things was arguably pretty bad. It was probably pretty bad, actually. In fact, some of it was really frustrating to watch. And, you know, it's give and take. I don't think... I feel like in terms of this current cycle, it was raised before, this current cycle, we probably have been abandoned somewhat. But I don't think we've lost the trust of them altogether. I think Halo 6 will probably make or break 343. Entirely make or break 343 now.
Yeah, I mean, part of it's difficult because before Halo 5, we didn't have any support anyway, regardless of, you know, HS, grassroots, or anything.
Yeah.
We were a grassroots community for pretty much since 2001.
We still are. So yeah, it's so pushing forward from that. At the end of the day, Nightfall is what we want to be in terms of the EU community. It's the future for us. Everything, including what I was going to say, is the Draft Cup, which we've had over 40 players sign up for. We've had 40 players sign up for 8 teams. We're going to have 8 captains pick live on this stream because we haven't got the Nightfall Twitch. I haven't got the Nightfall Twitch's stream key yet, and we haven't got all the resources yet. But we're going to get them. The Draft Cup will be on this stream, or one of the streams, or something. We'll tweet it out. But Europa Halo is now merging into the Nightfall project, and you can follow Nightfall at GG Nightfall. And we will be announcing the Draft Cup captains by the end of the week, and hopefully at the weekend or early next week we'll have that draft actually take place, and then the first weekend in March will be the cup itself. So you will see some players not make the cut and will be basically put into the sub pool, unfortunately for them, but don't be disheartened because as we've seen loads of times before, loads of people drop out at the last minute, and all the time we get people who's even on the Twitch chat just jump in randomly. So yeah, so thanks a lot to everybody who has joined in on the Twitch chat. More than welcome to join us. This is a pilot production, we stress that, and that from now on we will be pushing everything on the Nightfall platforms, so make sure you follow Nightfall. There will also be a link on the Twitter page to our new Discord, which we hope to grow the EU community within that, and hopefully arrange the likes of 8's big team battles, community nights. Everything will be done inside that Discord on our Twitter page. Like I said, Cups going forward. The likes of Lou isn't here at the minute tonight, but he will be in the future. He'll be running all his, what would have been Splinter Cups will now be Nightfall Cups. We will share a Nightfall yeah, there we go. Share a link to Nightfall in the chat, please. I don't know if that's a Discord. You can throw the Discord in there too. So yeah, next month we'll be back with a podcast in the middle of next month. We will announce the title for that whenever we come up with it. But in the future we'll go with loads of different things. We'll go with, like, what do we want from Halo 6? What is, you know, we'll debate many different things. This is just one thing to kick the whole thing off. It was a pilot, and so far I've been happy with it. We will oh yeah, Prisma's just joined in, so yeah, he's in the chat at the minute.
Hey.
This was his spot down here that he was supposed to be in, but he's not here tonight, so we had to fill it with just a random bit of text. That let everybody know that you can get question answer in the Twitch chat. Earlier on I mentioned that we had a tweet that we put out, and that was to say what was your favourite memories, etc from the likes of past events, and what do you expect from Halo 6. Do you think it'll bring back the community? So we're going to read out some of the replies, and we'll come back to it. Jack Thomas, Fireboy Jet, he says number 1 about what's his best memory from an EU event or cup, and his best memory is the fact that he joined the community. Does he think Halo 6 will bring back the EU community? He says yes, depending on if the game is good. And 3, does Halo 6 need a BR mode? He says yes, but it has to be done right. Shadow in the Hood, Calvin, says placing 4th in the free-for-all finals is his best memory, along with sleeping in a weird hostel full of gypsies. Hopefully it's good enough for him to compete again. That's when he talks about the EU community for Halo 6, and he really hates BR Battle Royale modes, but he says in brackets, but that's just me. XXL, he says his favourite memory of a cup or event is MC Cocaine, in brackets, if you know then you know. 2, Halo 6 has the potential, just like every other modern incarnation of Halo has had, working game from launch would be a great start. And and actually to listen. So that's in terms of Halo 6 bringing back the EU community. What on his opinion on Battle Royale mode, he says as long as it doesn't take away from the arena gameplay, then he's down for it. Shay or XL Legend, he says slapping Snailed It and Pinchy's team at HCS London after all the shit talking they did and had pure naughty stats.
I remember this.
2, in terms of Halo 6
Bless him.
and the EU
Cast
community,
it like he just won the lottery. Bless him.
he says it can bring back the community, but there needs to be a solid settings from the get-go and an established plan for EU Halo in a particular path to pro type system. We're hoping that Nightfall is that path to Halo 6, and in terms of the grassroots for the EU community, we're hoping. And in terms of his opinion on Battle Royale, he says it'd be cool. Nate Poole, who is a guy who's been out of the community for a while, he hasn't really played, he's moved on things, but he's still fondly remembered and still knows a lot of the guys. He's been at a lot of events. Yeah. Nate Poole says London Land when Shoddy the dog was named Shoddy Space Boy. And there's a photo, I believe, actually somewhere there. 2, he says the game has to be done absolutely out of this world to reignite the EU Halo scene. And he says, yes, I think it needs to be done separately from Halo Infinite for Battle Royale. The BR mode needs to be a free-to-play game of its own. On that, actually talking to Halo Data Hive, he put out a tweet during the week that he thinks that it would be awesome if Halo 343 dropped a Halo Battle Royale game to keep everybody tied in over before Halo Infinite. Don't see that happening, because if they're going to do anything new, it's probably on the new engine, and they're probably going to save the new engine reveal for Halo Infinite. So if it was ever going to happen, it was going to be a mod of Halo 5 or something. So I think that would just annoy the hell out of people. It probably wouldn't be free to play either. It'd probably have to be Halo 5. A Halo 5 playlist. Ewan didn't say anything about a cup, but Ewan MP says he doesn't think. He's been playing a lot of Black Ops 4 this year and really enjoyed the game, so if the next COD is good, I'll be making the change. What? Okay. Right, he's... Anyway. Boomy EU or Oliver Webb. At London, they used a projector to show the audience the game, and it was taking ages for the screen to come down, and the game already started. Everyone went, ooh, until it was down. It was so funny. 2, he says, everyone will come back, just a long break as EU Halo is pretty dead right now. Yeah, in some ways it is. And 3, Halo 6 doesn't need a Battle Royale mode. By the time it's released, it would be late and the trend would be over. Also, definitely. For Halo to hit it, it needs to be original. So that's everything that came from the tweets earlier on, and I think that's pretty much everything. Moses thinks Halo Infinite's multiplayer needs to be standalone and campaign separate. There was chat about that. There was a rumor about that, wasn't there? That the campaign... they're going to
release the separate games.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense a little bit, because of, like, you know, you're freeing up more. If people are still buying discs at that point, it free up more disc space and things.
If there was a staggered release of
I could kind of see it.
I wouldn't be able to get behind that. I think that would be really stupid. I just couldn't get behind that.
But I could sort of see why it would happen if it was to happen.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, you pay for your campaign, and then your multiplayer is free. Skins all cosmetic based.
Yeah,
makes sense. Release it on PC. Boom.
I just, unless, like, the campaigns have been really short this last while. Not been a really long campaign since Halo 2. So I mean, I'd want bang from a buck. Like, you know, I'd want to get, if I'm paying for a £40 or £50 game, I want a big long campaign with the you know, with the competitive multiplayer there and then. I don't think it should be 2 separate games. I don't think it should be broken down in 2 separate games. That'd be stupid in my view. I don't know. I hope that rumor's not true. I heard that rumor a while back, actually, at E3, the last E3. But anyway, any questions left on the Twitch chat you want to ask us, the panel of guys, before we close out for the day? And we'll just give a shout out to those Nightfall platforms again. Lord Rena says if multiplayer was free, I think Warzone would excel. Warzone, yeah, we never really mentioned Warzone. I mean, Warzone's big in with some parts of the EU community. I know Halo, there's a lot of Spanish teams.
It's still a huge following casually as well.
Yeah, it never
I mean,
was
it's
something
not
that
it's not
appealed
as
to me.
once was, but then Halo 5's playbase isn't what it was anyway. But there's still quite a lot. I'm in some like Facebook groups and things, and there's still quite an active Warzone community,
I'd say
even if it's just people meeting up just to play with each other. But there's still, yeah,
Warzone probably, I think, could end up going. And if Battle Royale comes in, I think Warzone will be sacrificed.
probably.
Unfortunately, because I think there's a lot of things that are just broken. Anyway, we are done for the night. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys and talking to the Twitch chat. This is the first episode of the Nightfall podcast. You've been listening to me, Keelan, to Matt, Greatest Shift, Manatee, and Mike, Mike Manatee, Mike on the mic. So yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. We will be back next month with another one. We will announce that in good time. But in between then, we'll have the Draft Cup live on here. Hopefully I'll have all 8 captains in this very stream. And we'll be picking from a pool of players. There will be some controversial picks. There will be some people left out, unfortunately. But look, it'll all be a bit of fun. So you've been listening to the Nightfall podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. So it's bye from me and bye from you guys.
Peace. Cheers for watching, guys.